Hi everyone, today I'm going to be telling you about my final project topic that I chose, which was the dark web. The dark web is a hidden part of the internet that can't be accessed in everyday browsers like Firefox or Chrome, and information can't really be found about it either on regular search engines like Bing or Google. And this really fascinated me, especially because I always hear about how the government is surveilling us, our internet traffic, and individual online activity and searches. And then it raised the question of how people are still getting away with selling and purchasing narcotics and guns, but not being caught for it, since our every moves are caught, how aren't theirs? And overall, what I learned is that the dark web is accessed through a separate browser known as the Onion Router, Tor for short, Tor. And what Tor is three layers of encryption. The encryption is formed with a relay system that bounces signals among different Tor-enabled computers around the world. So in simpler terms, you have three computers located at three different IP addresses, and they're all Tor-enabled, and they basically run relays among the three, encrypting your personal IP address. And that creates the powerful tool of anonymity. Like everything else in the world, though, some tools are used for good purposes and negative purposes. So, unfortunately, the dark web is used for both. The upside is that Tor can actually protect a lot of people's privacy. And as we know from our other units, privacy is important because people don't want to ever feel violated or as if trust is being broken. It's kind of like that honorary code that everybody expects to be kept, but now that we know that the government is releasing information and all these things, it's really being jeopardized and people question if they should search certain things. And this is just causing people to hold back on what they're really curious about. Another upside, besides the freedom of privacy that Tor allows, is that it's actually protecting people in shelters that are victims of stalking and domestic abuse, because a lot of the times people have to go into hiding and they can't communicate with their families, they can't do things like everyone else and apply for jobs online, and that's really difficult because, as we know, everything is online now. And it's awesome because the dark web allows you to still have access to regular pages that we use like Facebook, Google, indeedjob.com, things like that. So of course, like I said before, with good comes bad. And one of the bad things that people do on the dark web is sell and purchase illegal drugs and weapons. This is done on one of the most popular browsers known as the Silk Road. 29-year-old Ross Ulbricht built this global black market that allowed users to sell and buy drugs, hitmen, guns, and much more, all anonymously. He had it all figured out until early 2013 when the FBI agents that were undercover reached out to Silk Road users to help shut it down. With that was an IP address bug that was planted in all the users' emails to erase any anonymity that they were using. Yes, there are bugs out there that can erase this tool, but only temporarily, because once users or creators find out about it, like Ulbricht thought he did, you can get rid of it. But shortly after, he was arrested at a public library, and only the FBI knows how Ulbricht did not really get rid of this bug that they planted. Silk Road was then shut down, but only for 2 months, and then other co-creators brought it back up again. And it's still up and running today. Just this past spring, they announced an update that Silk Road 2.0 would have a huge update to become Silk Road 3.0. A few interesting things I really discovered through this research project is that by encrypting the IP addresses and routing it through numerous computers around the entire world using the same software, it makes it impossible to shut it down. That's how people are still getting away with doing illegal things through the dark web. And this all started because a US Naval Research Laboratory in 1995 had a 30-year-old mathematician that was wondering how government intelligence workers, also known as spies, were having all these different ways of communicating information secretly from point A to Z without anybody knowing who it was really from. That's when they debuted their Onion Routing project in 2002 and released the floodgates for all these positive and sometimes negative things to be done on the dark web. So, to learn more about it, you guys can read all this information that I typed up here and summarize what the dark web is. It goes into a little more depth than what I just explained, but it's not too detailed. If you want really detailed information, you can go to the Tor project, and it's actually also where you can download the Tor browser. So it just tells you a little bit about, well, not a little bit, but in depth about what the Tor browser is, why we need Tor, and one of the big things is privacy. Privacy is such a big thing, and that's why they get so much press about it. As you can see here, these are all the current publications from CNN, The Inquirer, TechCrunch, Motherboard, The Guardian, all these types of publications. And then they even have documentation um, about their legal status, and it's perfectly legal, really. The only thing is that there's sometimes illegal activity going on through the browser. And then we'll head back to my page and I'll show you guys my tab. So this goes into some of the vocabulary I use, like the deep web. The dark web is my topic, but it's just a sub part of the deep web. So this little vocabulary tab here just goes through that and then also defines the onion router Tor again. Here you can find a video that compresses all the information about the Tor browser under 5 minutes. And I put skip the first 10 seconds because it's just the creator's introduction. And they do that there. So
most of us browse the internet on a daily basis. Pages
see.
Visit, in fact, only a minor
So it's really neat because it gives you a better visual than photos would, which is why I didn't use any, because the photos that they use are all like this, like connecting the dots and lines, and it can be pretty confusing if you don't know what it all is in deep. So I just put my opinion of what the future for the deep web will be. And overall, I really think it's going to be a new browser that everyone's going to have, just like we all have Chrome and Firefox and Safari, just because social media is really transferring over onto it really well. Facebook already has their page, Snapchat is creating their page, an app, um, which is kind of odd because your photos are lost after somebody views them for the first time. So they say. And then I just wrote a summary of how I think technology overall will have an impact on my career as a speech language pathologist. And then a photo of myself and a little bit about me. But yeah, that's what my project was all about in a more condensed version. So I hope you guys learned a little something as you listen to this and see how I navigate through my website. Just leave a comment regarding what more you would have liked to learn about or hear me discuss so that I know for future reference. Thank you.